Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to make sure you know all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on all new episodes of Wade's World, Boob Windows and Long Boxes, our Hard R movie reviews, and so much more, all completely uncensored. Access starts for as little as $1 a month, full videos when you pledge $3 a month. Check us out at the link in all of our show notes, or just go straight to patreon.com/capesandlunatics. Hope to see you there.
Me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I am your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
Maybe that's why the Watchers are there. Maybe that's why their job is there. Because that is the element through which whoever is behind them is maintaining some semblance of order. As long as a Watcher is present, the electrons do what they're expected to do.
Well, that is one theory. Say their name. Say, I did the intro for you.
Oh, sorry. I was too caught up in that.
I know you were all I blew your mind. I know.
Yeah. I'm still running on that thought. I was like, oh man, what a great, beautiful thought.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, who maybe missed that part, because we gotta edit this together. So here's the thing. Now we saw this last episode where we, the audience, start to see Uatu in the background. But the fact of the matter is that in this episode, hello, you gotta get a lot closer to the camera for that to work here. Okay, Tristan wants to give you a scary face. Yeah, that's his jump scare. There we go.
Whoa. Where did you get that? That looks like it's from World War I.
No, actually, I believe, what did he say? It was a Hungarian model? Yeah, it's brand new. We got it at the Army Surplus Store. They have a really great Army Surplus Store here in Mystic, Connecticut, where we're taking our Labor Day vacation.
Wow.
And Tristan had one, and that's a real gas mask. Like, if you were
it looks like it was involved in fighting Nazis.
No. It's actually brand new. It still has the latex powder in it. That makes it look a little, but that's just for packing. But yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Helmy looks like that character from Borderlands.
Yes. Well, he's got like a couple. What's that game you like? SCP. Yeah, SCP character that he's going to. That has, honestly, gas masks very popular among the kids today. They're very scary. But that is what we were talking about with this, which is the idea that when you observe an outcome, you influence it. And prior to this moment, we haven't seen the Watcher in any of the previous episodes. Last episode, we start seeing him in the background. We do, but this is the first time that other people start to notice him. And we do see, and this is the thing, that Strange goes like, oh, wow. And it is just this reality that when you start to appear, especially in the Marvel Universe, to now where it is that Uatu just shows up at times, and people go, something big's about to happen, because there's Uatu over there. And it's sort of this thing where he can interfere without interfering, because as soon as he shows up, everyone gets real self-conscious, because it's it's a momentous moment. But
also considering how it ends, Doctor Strange has this foolhardy confidence that he can just, I take it back, because he felt the presence of something bigger behind him. He said, God's right there. If anything goes wrong, I'll just tell God I didn't mean it. And
Yeah.
So just you're right, by the act of observation, because he knew he was being watched, now he felt like it infected his decision making and changed how he behaved altogether.
And you know, at the end of the day, what is the core of it is he says, I'm not a god, you know? And he says, if I could just punish you, I would, but I can't.
I just filed the paperwork, man.
Yeah.
I'm just
exactly. Really? And that is what they are. I mean, the Watchers, their history is so interesting because effectively Uatu's father like talked to the other Watchers because like one of these super ancient, super advanced races that basically, you know, science and magic, it's like, that's all child's play for them, yada, yada, yada. Incredibly long lived, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, you know, we are so advanced. We need to help some of these other newly developing races in this universe so that they can get better too. You know, we got to be benevolent, you know, scientists who have learned these great secrets and let people know. And of course, the first race they do this to, they immediately destroy themselves. Because they say, here is the secret of the atom, atomic power. Here is how you do it. It's nice and safe. All the energy your people could ever need to explore the stars and live your lives to the fullest. And immediately they blow themselves up.
Yeah, because
and
everybody,
of course, the aliens then...
Everybody thinks that we're only living in the physical world, but internally there's this whole emotional landscape that people don't give credence to in situations like that. You give them all this technology, but you don't teach them how to deal with their own internal worlds. And if you don't deal with that, then those problems, that greed, that selfishness, that lust for power manifests itself if you don't expect it or see it coming.
And that is what this is about, is the lust for power. That desire to just be the one who gets to say, no, I don't have limits. There is nothing I can't do. There is nothing I can't fix. You know, and there's even this interesting aspect of it where, like, he's getting this award for performing a lot of hemispherical. It sounds like he cut out a big chunk of someone's brain.
Half of it.
Yeah, successfully. You know.
To what end?
Well, to save the person's life, obviously.
I guess. Fair enough.
And you'd be surprised what you can do with half a brain.
Fair enough.
Actually, you know, that's one of the most fascinating things, like when they actually like do stuff like this. Like, so for example, a hemispheric lobotomy is actually when people have super severe seizure disorder. You can do a full hemispheric lobotomy, and it can actually solve the problem because the two halves of their brain don't connect anymore, and they can't like have a cascade effect. It has some side effects,
obviously,
but generally speaking, doesn't really affect their like intellect or ability to live their lives. They just have to.
And I
keep
feel like
eyes
over
open
time, the brain will tendril out new connections to compensate for the things that it's used to getting done.
Actually, it can't.
No, I've heard of like places where like other parts of the brain pick up the slack and start filtering information the way
other
it needs
parts
to
of
be.
the brain. Basically,
right. That's what I meant.
Basically, yeah. What we've learned about the brain over the last, 40 years, we've actually been able to really study it, is that it has a lot of redundancy built in.
Right.
Which, when you think about it, if you have a intellectual species, you're going to, and its intellect is based on a really soft material that's going to get knocked around a bit. You probably want to have some designed in. You don't want the entire system crashed just because you didn't have a redundancy to your speech center somewhere. You want to have the ability of the brain to sort of repurpose parts of the brain and to do, but really it grows for a certain point and then it stops. And that's one of the biggest problems with with most nerve surgeries is once a nerve gets damaged, you can't regrow it, except possibly now with stem cells. So now we're getting into that place where science and magic get right back together again. But, the entire idea is that, it's the idea that he can fix things. He's a surgeon. And, good. He should want to fix things. He's a surgeon. But, reality isn't isn't so base as a human. And the reality is, if you are a surgeon and your patient dies, it's not necessarily malpractice because the patient was going to die when you did it. Effectively, what this story is what if Dr. Strange operated on an otherwise healthy patient, the universe, to make it better for himself?
The sick one.
And that is the real thing. Because, okay, so for those who don't know.
So is that essentially a cancer? Is he a cancer to the universe?
I mean, well, he certainly had that effect on the universe. Just set it there. It's fine. You know, that is the effect he had on the universe. He wanted to fix something. Because, and so, okay, so premise, and let's get back to the premise.
He wanted to fix something from his perspective.
I didn't even watch this episode. Exactly. So in this universe, and this is the real thing, because this goes into actually some brilliant bit of time travel lore building that I am so impressed how Marvel is balancing all the stuff they're doing, trying to build out a science of time travel that is, honestly, if we ever actually really learn time travel and actually look at the physics and it's not exactly what this is, I think we're all going to be really mad because they have worked on this. And the idea is that you can, so when the Hulk says, if you go into the past, you can't affect your future because your future is already your past. So you go to the past, you do the thing, then you go back to your present. You're not going to cease to exist. Back to the future rules.
It's not the same present you're coming back to, right?
No, you can come back to your own present. Well,
but it won't be affected by what you did.
No, it won't be because that's going to create a branched timeline.
Right. So if you want to experience that change, just go back to not your present, but the present that you created.
Well, exactly. Except there's already a Doctor Strange in that universe who's a surgeon, probably married to that person.
So that's why I like the particle antiparticle kind of friction.
Exactly, because if he goes, because what he wants is he wants to take that alternate universe where she lives and
kill her Strange.
Kill her, take his place. Effectively, yes. Except that's not her. He isn't her Strange. That's the thing. Like, if he wants to go cross-dimensionally, he might even be able to do that. Find a universe where she didn't die. That is easy, because obviously the original MCU is that universe. Mm-hmm. She's not dead in the original MCU. We didn't even say...
So what's an interesting thought here is then when he goes back each time, there's only one Strange. It's just him. It's not like he's going back in time and encountering another version of himself and trying to be like, hey, don't do it. He gets to be himself in that moment.
Exactly. Well, he's rewinding himself to that point. He is in that moment, but he's bringing in all this knowledge from the future. And he's trying to alter time. But the problem is, and this is where the paradox comes in, when they say it's a fixed point in time, and they say it is unchangeable, what they're actually saying isn't quite what people think it means. So we think it's a fixed point in time. That means you can't change it. What it actually means is it's a fixed point in time that because you went back to change it, you can't. Because you would not have a motive to go back and change it if it wasn't what it was. So because
I took it to mean that certain events are causally related to so many other things that it's impossible because the wave of all the other happenings in the world are so strong that one tiny little thing, it can't be changed anymore because there's too many other things that happen that have too much power in their movement across, the arrow of time, that these little things, you can change a lot, but certain things are so consequential to everything else that they can't be changed. And if you wanted to change that, you would have to go change those 60 other things in order for the wave not to be moving in this direction, so you could have less enough energy to be able to change this thing. That's how I understood it.
And, well, okay. So what it comes down to, and it's not that you're wrong, but it's the direction of the wave.
Right.
So,
exactly.
So as an example, her dying isn't a fixed point. Strange changing her dying makes it a fixed point, because he is trying to alter his personal past. He's not trying to change his future. He is trying to change his individual past. In that sense, he is the fixed point. So, for example, let's say that Captain America, as he's going back in time, he goes and sees the Ancient One, and while he's there, he bumps into Steven and says, "Oh, hey, Steve, how you doing?" He says, "Do I know you?" It's like, "Oh, no, we just have the same name, and I like to do that. How do you know my name? Doesn't really matter. Anyway, have a nice time on your date tonight." And then because of that, he's like in his head the rest of the day, and he says, "I'm just not going." And then she might not die, because he's not doing it because that Stephen Strange went back, because this is already a branch timeline. This is a branch timeline because they went back the first time. And so, as a branch timeline, she's not going to die in that accident, per se. Well, I mean, she may die other ways, but she's not going to die, per se, in that accident.
Right.
But
she needs to die.
It's not the motivation to go back. Well, she doesn't need to die. That's the
Clearly
real point.
She does. The universe thinks so.
Well, this timeline needs her to die so that Doctor Strange can become Doctor Strange. And again, it is this idea of...
Yeah, but then again, if she didn't die in the other universe and he just lost his hands, he still became Doctor Strange.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. So, for example, if Doctor Strange were to go back in time to fix his hands, it would be the exact same effect. Because he's trying to change something that would have set him on his course. And you can't have it both ways. You can't be set on your course.
I see. That's interesting.
And you can't have your cake and eat it too. Is literally the whole point of this. He wants to have his cake, which is he wants to be Sorcerer Supreme. And the thing is, it's sort
but
of
what if he doesn't want to be a Sorcerer Supreme? He just goes back and stops that from happening. That's the exact thing that he does stop. Right?
But
he
then
goes
that
back
has other downstream consequences.
Right, I understand that, but that wouldn't explain why the universe keeps trying to kill her.
Well, no. The idea is that because he's already Sorcerer Supreme.
No, but if he goes back and that's the thing he changes, he's okay with not being Doctor Strange. He's like, you could keep these powers. I'll take my wife.
But he wouldn't be able to go back without being Sorcerer Supreme to start. So essentially, he can go back.
No, but it's a new branch timeline. Isn't that the whole point, that different things happen?
Well, only if he lets it be that. And then that Doctor Strange from that timeline.
So the thing is, he's not willing to give up being Doctor Strange, which is what makes it.
Well, no. Actually, what it is he's not willing. He's unable. So, for example, let's say he went back in time on the astral plane and then manipulated things to save Doctor Strange in the past. That Doctor Strange is going to go on and not become Sorcerer Supreme necessarily. Although he may in some other fashion. Other things could happen. As they did in the MCU. But because he manipulated things, when he returns to his physical form, it's not going to be him. What he is doing is he is casting a spell on himself to change his own past that would then alter his ability to make that spell. That's
a different reality, though. That's not the same reality.
No, because he's bringing himself back in time. That's the thing. That is where the loop comes in. Because he is going back to make the change.
But I can see ways around it, too. It's a whole different reality.
Well, that's what he's hoping, too. He's hoping... Yeah. I mean, for example, and as I said, there are universes where he doesn't have this happen to him.
That's what I'm saying.
There's one great universe where Doctor Doom becomes Sorcerer Supreme, where basically when Doctor Strange does show up, Doom is already there instead of Mordo, and basically says, "Oh, your hands are broke. I can fix that." He chops off his hands and gives him perfect robot hands. So he says, "No, those would be even better than your original hands." Like, hey, these are really good hands. Okay, I'm going to go back and be a surgeon now.
Right.
Because he just solved the problem by saying, "Oh no, those hands are broken. Here's brand new robot hands. Have those. That'll be even better than the hands you used to have." And he's like, "You know what? These are actually even better than the hands I used to have. So what am I complaining about?"
But now he can't feel his wife. Unless they gave him some sort of sensory input.
Exactly. I mean, they would have to. That's the thing. Is like if they're better than the original hands, they got to have the full sense of touch, because you wouldn't be able to be a surgeon without a sense of touch. You don't always get to see exactly where your hands are going. You're mostly just sort of like flying blind in there, and you just got to know what a body feels like in order to do that. So it's done in a particularly horrific way when Dr. Doom does it, but it accomplishes it. Then there's a whole other thing that happens later with machines and that. Read that episode. What if Dr. Doom was Sorcerer Supreme? It's a good book to read. But by the way, we did not do we did the intro, but I didn't actually tell people what we're watching. Today we were talking about what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands. A grief-stricken Doctor Strange uses the Eye of Agamotto in a dangerous effort to change the past. A.C. Bradley. Oh, okay. I got to jump into this because Captain America is by Jack. So Brian Andrews is our writer, of course. Brian Andrews is our director. A.C. Bradley is our writer. I guess they're just someone is editing these things and just pushing Jack because they're saying Jack Kirby and Joe Simon created Captain America, which is great. Neither one of them worked on Doctor Strange, so I don't know why he's here. But Matthew Chauncey is our story editor this week. So good for Matthew Chauncey. Way to go, Matthew. I knew you could do it. Getting back to the story. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point is it's time travel. And if you try, you can alter the past, but you can't alter your present. And that's really what it is. You can alter the past, but not your present. Because that really is what the Hulk said. When you go back, sure, you can alter the past, but that's not going to affect your present. So no matter what Strange does, he can't change his present. Because the present is the present, and it's already happened.
Right, but if he goes to a different universe, saves her, now he's an older version of himself, going from a different, which is what happens when you change things. It's not just that you go back in time, but when you change things, you create another branch dimension or reality. If you just jump into that one, save her, then you're an older version of yourself, but living from further behind. And that is essentially your present.
So he could do that, and that leaves that universe without a Sorcerer Supreme, and more importantly, without an Eye of Agamotto, without a Time Stone.
Right, or either that, or they find somebody else to take up the mantle to be the champion.
Well, no, because they'd have to go back with him to get the Time Stone to bring it back. So basically, it's like on every level, because they don't have a Time Stone there. He just took it
but
to
he
the
brought
past
it there, didn't he?
Yeah, he brought it with him.
Right, so they have one in that
So
universe?
basically, well, I mean, that's an interesting question. So he'd have to go back in time. So here's how. So, okay, he wants to do this. Here's what he can do. He has to go back about a week before.
Right.
To talk to the Ancient One of that universe. Say, hi, Ancient One of this universe. I really want my girlfriend not to die. But in order to do that, I have to travel back in time to do it. Here's the problem. If I do that, my Eye of Agamotto is coming out of my timeline and I'm creating a branch reality. What I would like to do, let's do a swappy swap. I'm going to give you my time stone. You give me yours. I'll send it back to Wong. He can deal with it. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of it theoretically could be done with a lot of Prisoner of Zenda kind of stuff here, where we're just swapping identities. But I don't think that. Here's what I'm going to say. It's sort of like what Doctor Strange says to the Ancient One when she says, "Well, I just split you off into 2 different realities." And it's right. That does not sound smart or safe.
Yeah, what was she thinking? Or at least encapsulate him in some sort of bubble reality where it doesn't infect, and just like placate his fantasy and let him live in a diorama.
And you know what? Here's the thing. Everyone's like, "Oh, why is Doctor Strange doing something so stupid in that Spider-Man Far From Home trailer?" I think Sorcerer Supremes are stupid. But it's one of those things where it's like, maybe you have to be, like, if you're going to take on a title like Sorcerer Supreme, there can be no humility involved. You've got to say, "I am smarter than everyone."
That was a name given to him. He didn't choose it.
No, but she chose what someone gave it. Basically, everyone who gets it has to be willing to embody it. So I think that there's something about being the Sorcerer Supreme. Because I think it's like, after watching this, I'm like, after watching this and Shang-Chi, I'm like, maybe Wong should be Sorcerer Supreme.
Yes! For crying out loud!
Quite frankly, in the comics, they're like doing this big, the death of Doctor Strange, which they've done before. It happens. But I get the feeling there is going to be a death of Doctor Strange. And I am certain that Wong's going to be the new Sorcerer Supreme. Because, honestly, first off, the actor, who ironically is also named Wong, is really great at that character. And I think the character in the books would be well served by being the Sorcerer Supreme. And so I do think Wong should be Sorcerer Supreme. But of course, it's the kind of thing where, it's your basic, no one who wants to be Sorcerer Supreme should ever be Sorcerer Supreme kind of thing. It's like the people that become Sorcerer Supreme, for whatever reason, they even if, like the person who is best served to be Sorcerer Supreme should be the person who just was good at their job and just found it happening one day. Whereas, like, if you choose to be president, you're making this choice that you are smarter than everyone else.
Right. It's like when Marcus Aurelius says to Maximus, "That is why it must be you, Maximus. You have not been ruined by our politics."
And the thing is that is the reality, is that even if you have the best intentions, you are the person that lacks humility, and the person who lacks humility will always make bad decisions, which is why humanity will always have difficulties in life, because we will always lack humility, at least among our leadership, But yeah, so essentially what happens, and this is actually what I really think is the most interesting thing. We meet a character named Obeng, who's played by Ike Amandi. I get the feeling we're going to see Ike Amandi in the live-action MCU.
I think so, yeah.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if he is in Eternals, because I realize that a lot of the imagery we see in that temple in the Library of Cagliostro is similar to imagery we've seen in the Eternals trailer. And it makes me wonder if Sprite is living at the Library of Cagliostro. And it makes me think that, so we might see Ike Amandi as librarian who's working with Sprite, and they're going to have a conversation, and we're going to see this character, and this idea of there being this secret library of Cagliostro is going to be something that is also going to be a plotline in the new Eternals, and possibly leading into Multiverse of Madness, because obviously someone's going to have to rein in Strange. And in this moment, this is the thing, is like, and throughout the whole thing, Obeng is trying to turn Strange away from the path. He says, when because he says, yes, research the library, go ahead. And he says, the only way you could do it was with the power of, an extra dimensional being. This is basically the One More Day scenario, which is that in One More Day, Strange, when he's first approached, couldn't actually do the spell that Peter wants. only Mephisto could do that, because an extra dimensional being like Mephisto could change the past so that Peter could have not revealed himself. Or he made the world forget that Peter, like, in the way that it actually works is everyone knew that everyone knew that Spider-Man said what his identity was, but no one could quite remember it. And there weren't any tapes of it, so everyone sort of forgot about it, which is weird, and why people just accepted that, who knows?
Well, I mean, it's just another Mandela effect, right?
Well, exactly. And the thing is that in the way that it plays out in the story is then Reed Richards and Stephen Strange actually do the spell, but only because Peter had already given up his marriage to Mephisto, who moved who changed the past. And through very subtle ways, it's great because it's actually like show what happened that day. And it's actually like he flies in as a pigeon and just like does something in one moment that completely derails the entire wedding. And that's the thing, is like everything stays the same except they aren't married. They aren't legally married.
Right.
Which you gotta wonder what that really accomplished, but except it made it so. Apparently they were very moral and they decided not to have a baby in the future because they already had a baby in this universe. It gets weird. This is why nobody likes One More Day. But the idea is that idea that only one of these extra dimensional beings, these beings that can use magic without rules, can actually accomplish what you want. Now, there's two ways to do this. One is if you can sell your soul or give these beings something that they do want. Because, of course, Obang says, these are beings that don't bargain because obviously they don't bargain just to help you out. They bargain for stuff because even Strange already knows they do bargain. That's how he beat Dormammu. He's like, I'm going to keep you stuck in this time loop until you agree to help me. But he says, well, if they won't help me willingly, I'll just take their power. Of course, first he goes and he does the tentacle thing, and the tentacle thing basically smacks him back. And he says, okay, let's start smaller. And he starts with a gnome. And he eats a gnome, and then he eats a bug, and then he eats other creatures until he gets back to the big Shumabaras.
Well, he draws the line at bugs. He sent the bug back, but took the cape.
I thought he still ate the bug, but that's okay.
No, he sent the bug back. He goes, I draw the line at bugs and sent the bug back. It was nice cape, though, and he yoinks the cape.
Kind of makes you think that was maybe the Sorcerer Supreme of his bug universe. That jerk just stole my cape.
And you know how much more power he could have drained if he just ate the bug? You're right. That was probably the Sorcerer Supreme of the bug world.
Yes. Anyway. Moving right along. But he eventually
I saw an interesting meme online where someone was like, when the Watcher exposed himself to Strange, if Strange didn't just try to eat him. Imagine if he could have absorbed the power of the Watcher and then be like, hey, you didn't know what you were talking about. I am a god.
Yeah. Well, except, again, like I said, and that's the thing. The Watcher actually isn't a god. He's not from another universe. He is from this universe. He is bound by the same laws of space and time.
Right. But he chooses to follow the rules, right? Like he could affect things if he wanted to. It's not that he can't. It's that he won't.
No, he could affect anything in the present.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But he chooses
can't
not to.
Change
But
the
if
past.
the Sorcerer Supreme, he can do whatever he wants, can't he?
No.
The Watcher?
Want to? Yeah. What?
The
No.
Watcher.
Yeah, the Watchers. They can't. If they could, they would have just gone back and said, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, don't give."
I thought they did it out of some sense of duty or obligation to their purpose.
No, they do it out of the realization that when we interfere, things go really bad.
Right, but that means that they can interfere.
Well, no, they can interfere with the present. They can't interfere with the past. They can't change the past. That's the point. Because again, anything.
I thought it wasn't that they can't; is that they didn't want to.
No. So here's a way to think about it. You know how they say time flows differently in the TVA?
Okay.
If you're outside of time, you can go to the past, you can affect the past, and then you can go back to your home dimension because you're outside of that time. But if you're in a 4-dimensional universe that is bound by time, you can only change things within that universe.
But so the Watchers only exist there? The Watchers aren't outside?
Because if you go to the Watchers are just the Watchers are just like the Elders of the Universe, except
Right,
that
so they're outside of everything. They're backstage to everything.
No, they're just able to observe everything. So they can observe other universes, but when they observe other universes, they're observing other Watchers in those universes.
Gotcha.
So, like, there's a universe Uatu in that universe. And it's sort of like, so imagine this way. Imagine it like this. Let's say you shared a mind with all of your variants. So when we meet all the Loki variants, Loki could have a psychic connection with every other variant across all time and space. So that he can see what they're doing, he can do what they're doing. And in that sense, he can observe their world, observe their universe. But if they try to affect the universe, he could affect the universe, but only in that universe and only at that time.
So at least, I mean, for Doctor Strange's purposes, that's the only universe he's concerned with. So if he became the Watcher, he could effectively get what he wanted, right? Combined with his own powers?
He could do exactly what he did. He could put a bubble around himself and Christine, which is what he does. Although I think that doesn't even save Christine. And he could maybe build a new universe in its place, but he's not going to be able to save this universe. This universe is gone. It's
almost like in order to get that one point to not be a sticking point, everything else had to dissolve, right? And consequently, like, all the power that he needed had to be drawn from somewhere, and all the consequential things that happened because of this one event were degraded to such a point that everything else that the rest of the world depended on had to break down. And eventually it's just like, that's a paradoxical thing that it can't exist, because if you change this, too much else changes and everything falls apart. There's certain things that too many things rely on.
Exactly. You know, you can bring in energy from another universe, but that is taking energy out of that universe. And that energy can change this universe, but only to a certain extent. And then, like I said, had he just made a deal with the devil, it would have solved the problem immediately.
Yeah.
He could have gone to Mephisto and said, and if you will recall, that is exactly what Caecilius wanted to do with Dormammu. He said, I want my wife back. Bring my wife back and I'll open the gates to the universe for you. I'll do whatever you want, you know? I'll trade with you what it is you want to get what I want. And of course it failed horribly. And the reality is that, as we see at the end of this, like, the Doctor Strange that did all this is not going to be the Doctor Strange that Christine wants to be with.
Right.
Just you know about magic, and now all of a sudden you're going to be a demon eater and a soul eater, and you're going to
interesting parallel with Shang-Chi.
Dude, first off, I didn't ask you to. Second, yeah, well, exactly.
In Shang-Chi, when he says, yeah, if mom is there and she comes back, do you think she's going to want you? And that's what really gets to him. That's the part that really, like, I have no answer for that.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, you know, you're asking for something that you don't have control over. You're asking for another person to be the person unchanged that you love. Well, you have changed so much. You're asking for them to stay still as you move away and expect them to be right by your side still. But that's not how it works. Motion is relative. In what Strange had to do to bring Christine back, you know, which is why, I mean, arguably the only noble answer is, I did all this to bring you back just so you could live, and I know you won't be with me. It's like, I did this just for you, not for me. Go live your life. Be happy. You know, and that's the thing. And, you know, but for what it's worth, I guess, for everyone that lived through the blip, this idea that people can just come back suddenly becomes a really attractive idea. But as we saw, even with the blip,
not without its problems,
you can't bring people back. Yeah, but you can't bring back people who didn't die in the blip. who didn't get whipped.
Right. Who died outside the...
You couldn't bring Natasha back. You couldn't bring, anyone back except for the people that were blipped. Right. And that's the sad part of the story. Yeah. All right. And of course, so at the end of the day, Sorcerer Supreme is stuck in a little shell in the middle of a void as even the Watcher fades away. And that's the end of the story.
And
Happy day. Yeah. Well, don't mess with stuff, Mozz. That's the moral.
Yeah.
All right, Mozz. Any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
I thought it was maybe my favorite one so far. It was the deepest, the darkest, and the heaviest episode so far.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to see like a cartoon series that have been relatively lighthearted for the most part in many to delve this deep into some real interesting issues. And the metaphorical parallels with actual science are so fascinating and so appreciated from my end that they went to these lengths to sort of give us like little bits of science that hopefully inspire people to look into these things and learn about these things and make people smarter. So I absolutely loved this episode.
Agreed, without a doubt. I mean, it's just a really good episode all around. And, you need those tragedies. You need, and I like how they kind of eased us into it. Because, you start off with Peggy Carter, which, it's tragic. She doesn't get to be with Steve. That's sad. It's like, it's great. Yeah.
She gets to be more herself, right?
I know.
So there was happiness, there was joy in that too.
Exactly. And the same thing with T'Challa. It's like, oh wow, look at all this great things that spared the universe. And they were like, but then Star-Lord is still out there and he's still got that celestial spark that could destroy everything, which opens up this idea. Is like, what if all these universes get destroyed? What if, if we get that Guardians of the Multiverse, it's because all the pieces, these universes were not sustainable once these pieces fell apart. And that, that maybe that's the idea that maybe Uatu, because Uatu has done this in the past where he just like grabbed, your universe was dying and actually the entire multiverse may die soon. And the only way to save it is with a certain group of heroes. So we're going to have to see what we get. It's going to be interesting where we go from here. A few days, we're going to get episode 5 and then only 4 left.
Oh,
yeah.
That's pretty good.
I think there's only 9 episodes. Yeah, well, it's a good series and it's a lot of work, but a lot of fun. All right. Mozz, if people would like to talk to you about this stuff, talk to you about what could have been, how can they find you?
They can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And if you'd like to talk to us, talk to us with your voice. You can do so by calling the Capes and Lunatics hotline. Let them know who you want to talk to and say, hey, Chaz and Mozz, here's my thoughts on tonight's episode. That's 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our mothers and fathers once did, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet. Nothing at the moment, but someday soon, something cool, at CharlieEsser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, me hearties, you've sailed these briny depths once more. Come to the end safe and sound. But we hope you disembark with us again next week, as we once again sail full stream ahead. Arg!